Well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region, and welcome to this Free State Colorado interview. Today, I'm joined by Ian Escalante, Director of Operations for Rocky Mountain Gun Owners. Well, Ian, I hope you are well, and thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, Brandon, thanks for having me on. It's good to be back. I always enjoy coming on Free State Colorado podcast and really enjoy Liberty on the Rocks too. So I'm ready to tell you about how awful this legislative session was.
Awesome. Really appreciate that. Well, first off, I want to thank you for all your hard work this legislative session. You showed up for every committee hearing where an anti-gun bill was being heard. You delivered petitions, you communicated with legislators, and you hosted a rally or two. So briefly, Ian, can you summarize what it was like down there this year?
Well, I felt like an American soldier walking into Fallujah. Quite frankly, it was a absolute disaster. These people, it was very, very clear, not just the way they acted on the floor or acted during committee hearings, but even the way they acted when no one was watching, when they weren't in live committee, when they didn't have the cameras on them, really showed that they did not give a crap about our liberties. And quite frankly, they had a disdain for the fact that we were as free as we are. They had an actual disdain for it, and they made it abundantly clear whenever they would get up and talk about their bills. They had this really high and mighty, holier than thou attitude. Like, we are the governors, we are the rulers, and what we need to do is we need to make sure that we're keeping, these Coloradans, these peasants in line. That was their attitude that they had the whole session. And it was really disgusting. And it was very, very infuriating. And also the fact that they would just openly lie about a multitude of things, whether it was about gun statistics, whether it was about something to do with one of their stupid housing bills they were trying to run, anything across the board, they would just brazenly lie. When they would get called out on their lie, they would just lie again, or they tried to twist what they say or cover it up and say they didn't lie. I think the best one was this was for House Bill 1353. This was the state permit for gun shops bill. Andrew Basenecker, who's just one of the absolute worst, horrible from Fort Collins. He had his name on this state permitting for gun shops bill, which we'll get into later, but pretty much it would create an Illinois style licensing structure for the gun shops in Colorado. And unfortunately, that passed. We're hoping that Jared Polis will veto it. He's actually been very, very generous with handing out the vetoes this session, much to the disgust of many of his own party members. But on House Bill 1353, I got up there. I was talking about, what a problem this was because they would allow the Department of Revenue to get their own police force, and they would be able to go into these gun shops unannounced, no warrant, be able to take whatever they want, inspect whatever they want, clear violation of the Fourth Amendment. And I got up there and I said, this is absolutely insane. This is disgusting. The fact that you are allowing a militarized taxman to run around and pretty much be the Gestapo for gun shops here in the state of Colorado and just completely throw the Fourth Amendment out the door. They're just using this licensing structure because they're saying, oh, it's licensing. We have to quality check it like we do the marijuana dispensaries and the liquor stores and things like that. They're hiding, absolutely violating and destroying people's Fourth Amendment rights under the guise of a licensing scheme. So I called that out and I mentioned that. And Andrew Basenecker said, actually, someone came up here and was worried about Fourth Amendment issues. Well, the Fourth Amendment doesn't apply here because the Fourth Amendment says unreasonable searches and seizures require a warrant. He goes, I think these are perfectly reasonable. So I don't think we need a warrant. Literally said that in committee. And I was just thinking to myself, this is absolutely insane. I cannot believe that we have politicians like this elected. And that's why after session, and we can get into this a little bit later when we talk about elections, I've become very, very hell bent on making sure we replace a lot of these people.
Great. Yeah, it's absolutely astounding just the ridiculous behavior of these legislators down there. I mean, total either a misunderstanding of the Constitution to be generous or a total disregard for it to be
Disregard.
yeah, totally a little more realistic there to say that they know what they're doing, they don't care. And with Bosnecker, whatever you his name, however you say his name. I feel like he's one of those true believers down there. He does believe that the state has the ultimate authority over every individual. That it is perfectly reasonable in his eyes for the government to probably send people into anybody's home, check to see if they have firearms, check to see what they're doing with them, if they're locked up or what. I mean, it's absolutely crazy the just this level of authoritarianism that we're seeing in our state government these days.
It's horrifying. And actually, to your point, uh, rewind about a year ago, we're talking January of 2023 when they were first really talking about bringing up an assault weapons ban after they had a pretty comfortable election cycle in 22. The original draft wasn't just Elizabeth Epps. Andrew Basenecker was the co-prime sponsor of the original assault weapons banner. He then got elected to leadership, took his name off the bill, and then the leadership kind of abandoned it entirely. But Andrew Basenecker was on that bill, and in that bill, in the original text of the bill that we got access to about a year and a half ago now, for the 2023 assault weapons ban, there was language in there that the CBI, Colorado Bureau of Investigation, would be sent door to door to people's houses to collect their weapons, and that if this individual was in possession of a weapon and couldn't prove, so what they would have to do is they would have to have like a receipt from when they bought it. If they couldn't prove that the weapon was purchased before the ban went into effect, they would have to register it, like they'd have to get a tax stamp, like how you do for suppressors and NFA items. And then what they would have to do is they would have to surrender the weapon for 5 days. If they couldn't provide proof in 5 days, the weapon would be destroyed and they get charged with like a class 3 felony. Like it was absolutely insane. So to your point, Andrew Basenecker is absolutely okay with sending a militarized police force door to door to come after our guns.
Yeah, I think, a lot of people probably don't realize just how vehemently anti-gun some of these legislators are, because the media kind of soft pedals it. A lot of these more moderate Democrats will say, no, it's just for safety, it's just for, protecting kids, it stops suicides, to stop violent criminals, blah, blah, blah. And unfortunately, there's a certain segment of the population, the voting population that believes that. All they ever did was take civics class in high school, don't really understand the true nature of politics, but they see it as a way for, oh yeah, these politicians are acting with best interest. Maybe they're mistaken, maybe they're just ignorant, but that's their kind of mindset. But unfortunately, the reality with somebody like him, and then you get Epps, Hernandez, Garcia, Woodrow, these other people who are on the record wanting full gun bans. I mean, I remember being at that 2023 a committee hearing till 1 in the morning, 1:30 in the morning, I think it was, where that bill got killed. Didn't make it out of committee, thankfully, last year. And Woodrow, in his little speech at the end, the says, we could talk about banning all handguns. I'm down, and raises his hand up, and the other committee members kind of laugh. But, that's just the total attitude of these people. They want a disarmed population. I mean, they really, really do. And sure, it's not every single Democrat down there, obviously, or else all of these bills would have passed, but it's a good chunk of them, and more than there was before, more than there was in previous years. And that's really the scary part, is that the members of the Democratic Socialists of America, or these communist type legislators, are growing in number down there. So it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out through the primary and the general election this year for sure.
Absolutely. And it is very, very concerning. I mean, you go back to 2021, 2022, even after the King Super shooting at Boulder, they didn't even touch an assault weapons ban. That was not even on the table. Now, what they did instead is repealed preemption, which set the stage for a lot of these localities to pass assault weapons bans. But I mean, the fact of the matter is that previously this wouldn't have even been considered. And now you got people like Mabry and Woodrow and Hernandez, Epps, Garcia. Garcia literally calling for the repeal of the Second Amendment during the assault weapons ban hearing this year. I mean, crazy, crazy, insane stuff. Absolute garbage. I actually, we posted the recording of it on Twitter of her literally saying that, Justice Stevens was the greatest Supreme Court justice in history, and that he was a visionary when he said it was time to repeal the Second Amendment, and that what we should be doing is banning toxic masculinity. If we ban toxic masculinity, then we won't have any more shootings. So we need to ban assault weapons and ban toxic masculinity. Like absolutely asinine stuff, like something that any normal person should never, ever, ever say. Absolutely insane stuff.
Well, especially somebody who's serving in the government, who's maybe appointed, maybe not even elected, but nonetheless, they took that oath. They put their hand, hopefully, on the Bible. I know a lot of them didn't, but put their hand up, recited the oath to uphold the Constitution. And Colorado Constitution is very clear. The United States Constitution is very clear, and it's just unfortunate that these politicians just don't care. So we could go on and on about this, but I'd love to get to some of the meat here and talk about some of the
Sure.
bills that were introduced this year. Kind of talk about. I know a lot of people have questions about which ones passed, which ones didn't, and what does it mean? What does it mean for people who want to be law abiding, who want to follow the law, who don't want to get in trouble? And these laws kind of scare them because they just don't know. They say, "Oh, what passed, what didn't, and how's it going to affect me as a Colorado gun owner?" So I'm going to go ahead and jump over to the website to rmgo.org. Definitely a great resource for people. So, something you should be checking out, folks. If you're not a member of Rocky Mountain Gun Owners, you definitely need to be. So, just go rmgo.org and lots of great information here. This is what we're going to be using tonight as our resource. It was a great resource during the legislative session. It's actually going to be a great resource here coming up during the primaries. So just wanted to point out, I noticed there's a couple new slides here on the homepage here. We got the Second Amendment banquet coming up. Do you mind just briefly telling us a little bit about that?
Sure. So we're going to be doing a banquet. It's going to be our Save Our Second banquet on June 15th at the Douglas County Fairgrounds. And the reason we're doing this is we want to give a chance for gun owners and supporters and members of RMGO to come together in one place and celebrate the Second Amendment. That's what we really want to do. We want to celebrate the Second Amendment. We're going to have Congressman Thomas Massie, who just won a decisive victory for reelection in Kentucky. I'm very happy about that. It was definitely a white pill for me after the the legislative session, which was kind of depressing. And then we're also going to have Kyle Rittenhouse there as well. And we have all kinds of sponsorships. There's levels of sponsorships where you can actually get a chance to sit at the same table with Congressman Massey and Kyle Rittenhouse. So those are really, really cool things. You need to go to rmgo.org/banquet to get your tickets. Time is running out. We're only going to have ticket sales open for about another 10 days because we're getting close to our maximum capacity. So if you want an opportunity to meet them, and also on top of that, we are going to be doing a metric ton of gun giveaways. So we're going to do a raffle for guns, and then we're also going to be doing live and silent auctions for all kinds of cool guns, custom guns, ARs, pistols, magazines. We're going to be giving away all kinds of accessories too, some optics. So you're going to get a real chance if you come out to this to actually not just get a chance to celebrate the Second Amendment, but really celebrate the Second Amendment by taking home some new additions to your arsenal and additions that we can celebrate that will not now be banned after the legislative session, which I'll get into later. So yes, rmgo.org/banquet. Definitely come out. We'd love to see you there. It's going to be an awesome time.
Perfect. Yeah, I got my ticket already. I'm pretty excited about it. Didn't know about all the giveaways, so that's going to be really cool. But yeah, and I just love going to events like this because just being in the same room with so many like-minded individuals, people who believe in liberty and freedom and our Second Amendment, our right to keep and bear arms, and understand this right of self-defense and how important it is. It's just great. I mean, there's nothing like it. Being surrounded by so many great people, especially when not all of us get that every day, right? Sometimes we're surrounded by people who don't really get the importance of our right to self-defense. So just showing up for that, networking, making friends. It's going to be a great time. Really encourage people to go. Really looking forward to it. One other last thing I noticed on here before we jump into the bills, another slide, the Rocky Mountain Gun Owners Political Action Committee has some official endorsements here for it looks like the primary coming up.
Absolutely. So we are going to be, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, this legislative session has really motivated me as our super PAC director to spend and invest a lot in the upcoming elections. And that's another reason why we're doing the banquet is because we want to raise money so that we can dump as much as humanly possible, a record amount, more than RMGO has dumped into elections in a very long time, in primary and general elections. It is time that the establishment organizations like Advanced Colorado and other organizations like them that get involved and do these independent expenditure committees. It is time that gun owners finally have a say in this because for too long now, we've been in a situation where all the people that have the money are the Democrats and the uber moderate establishment Republicans. And because we have open primaries here in Colorado, the uber establishment Republicans run their moderate candidate in the primary. They dump all kinds of money messaging to unaffiliates to get these left leaning voters to vote in the Republican primary. This Republican either gets elected and is horrible and doesn't do anything that we want them to do, completely bends the knee to the establishment and to the other side, or they're so milquetoast that no one wants to vote for them, and we end up getting a Democrat elected. That is the problem. The time of trying to run the middle of the road campaigns that a lot of these establishment groups have been trying to push for years now. They say, oh, you can't talk about guns because of Columbine, immigration. I mean, we don't have a position on immigration, but things like immigration, crime, things that are actually really, really important to voters. They say, no, 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 you need to talk about affordable housing. You need to talk about school choice. You need to talk about affordable health care. And realistically, those are things that don't engage voters and don't drive them out to the polls, at least the voters that we need to be winning over. That kind of stuff doesn't motivate them. What motivates them is, are they going to take a stance on the controversial issues? That is what we need. And those are the type of people that we need to be electing, because the Democrats, they are not afraid of, electing Lorena Garcia. Tim Hernandez, there's a really good chance he gets reelected. He has gotten so much money. He is almost at six figures. His race is going to be one of the most expensive primaries in Colorado this election cycle. So they have no problem. Monica Duran has no problem dumping, Democrat caucus money into his race, even though he's by far and away the most radical and openly most radical, actually refers to himself as a communist. The most openly radical. We actually have started calling him Colfax Che at this point because, I mean, realistically, the guy's a communist. They have no problem standing behind him. So it's about time that we stand behind people who are not afraid to take a hard stance on the controversial issues, whether it's gun rights. I mean, gun rights is our number one issue, but even things like mass surveillance, taxes, the overall size and scope of government. We need people to be able to take those hardline stance instead of going up there and wanting to be bipartisan and work with, try to kumbaya with the other side. The other side has made it clear they don't want to kumbaya with us. They want to screw us. So we're getting involved right now. We have a lot of our primary endorsements out right now. We're getting involved in 5 primaries in the state legislature, and we are getting involved in 1 district attorney race for the primary this year. So, and the district attorney race is to keep George Brockler from getting back into elected office. There's no way we can allow him to be reelected, especially with his horrifically anti-gun stance. So go on there, go to rmgo.org/endorsement. You can see we have a tab for House, Senate, and for local races, some county races, district attorney. We also are endorsing in some other local county races as well. So look on there to find out if you live in these areas, who's going to be the pro-gun pick for these individual races. And it's so important, especially for our county races, that we get true pro-gun champions elected to the county commission. That's also incredibly important. So go to rmgo.org/endorsement, and you'll see we're updating it daily as we get more surveys back, as we release more endorsements. So check on that and figure out who the pro-gun candidates are on the 2024 ballot.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, if you don't remember all the different websites, people, just rmgo.org and you can find the rest of it. You can look at these banner images that cycle through for the banquet, for the PAC endorsements, to become a member, to donate to the legal fund. Definitely your one-stop shop. And we're going to be looking at the bill watch tonight. So you can see it there. But let's go ahead and jump in. You can also go to gun laws, that little menu at the top of the page, and go down to bill watch. So let's take a look and see what happened this year down at the Capitol on our Second Amendment issues. So again, just to point out, RMGO was down there all the time, speaking out, showing up, rallying pro Second Amendment supporters, and really trying to do everything they could to push back against these legislators. So let's get into it here. Ian, I know you from our previous conversation, you have these kind of sorted and worst to not as bad, right? They're all terrible, of
Yes.
course, but kind of the most extreme, ridiculous, most anti-gun bill at the top. So if you want to kind of tell us a little bit about, let's start here with House Bill 1292.
Sure, sure. So this was the reincarnation of the 2023 assault weapons ban. They made it a little bit less extreme. They didn't criminalize the possession. What they simply did is they, instead of putting it all into one bill, they tried to break it up because just because they didn't push it this year doesn't mean if they would have passed it this year, that wouldn't be a bill in 2025 that came up. So they just tried to do the ban on the sale, transfer, and manufacture of so-called assault weapons. Now, the issue here is that these assault weapons, as defined under this bill, were not your typical, weapons of war, AK, AR style weapons. This would actually ban nearly all semi-automatic firearms. So, including handguns, including semi-automatic shotguns, absolutely insane stuff, including semi-automatic hunting rifles, crazy, crazy stuff. What it would do is it would ban anything that was semi-automatic and had one of the following attributes that I'm about to mention. So, a telescoping or collapsible stock, a buffer tube, a muzzle brake, a threaded barrel, could take a detachable magazine, and in addition, there's a little thing in there that says could be readily modified to take a detachable magazine. Well, anything can be readily modified. Any gun can be readily modified to take a detachable magazine. I've seen some of the stuff that some of these gunsmiths do where they turn these like crazy little revolvers into machine guns. Like it's crazy stuff. Cool stuff, but crazy. You can like readily modify pretty much any gun if you have the right tool. So what is that supposed to mean? And in addition, it would have gone after anything with a pistol grip. So that's all handguns right there. Goodbye. If it's semi-automatic and has a pistol grip, it goodbye. It's banned. Those are most handguns right there. Anything that I already mentioned, threaded barrel, anything with a muzzle brake or compensator would also be banned. When you're getting into the compensator territory, you're actually getting into a lot of the manufacturers have started manufacturing handguns with compensators to decrease the recoil. That way, more women could become more comfortable with shooting firearms. So now you would be banning weapons that were specifically made to be light, easy to fire, small enough to fit in a purse, and just overall easy for women to use to defend themselves. So now you have the people who are championing women's rights that are now championing disarmament of women, women in low-income communities, women in places like Aurora, women in places where there's a lot of crime, where police response time is up to 14 to 20 minutes, like crazy stuff like that. So that was pretty much the contents of the bill. They made some changes to it. They were very minute. Initially, it was going to be a civil penalty of, I think, $250,000 and then a half a million for each subsequent offense. They ended up getting rid of that and made it a petty offense now. So it was a criminal offense instead of a civil offense. Pretty much the bill didn't change all that much throughout the entire session. So the story of this is pretty crazy. They introduced it towards the beginning of session. They introduced it at the end of February, and there was really no movement on it for a while. And then they went ahead and scheduled the first hearing for March 19th. We had about 1,000 people show up to that hearing. 700 of those 1,000, give or take, were in strong opposition to the assault weapons ban. And they limited debate this year. So last year they didn't limit debate. This year they limited it to 12 hours. So testimony started around, I think it started around 11 o'clock in the morning. So as soon as 11 p.m. at night hit, testimony was cut off. By 3:30 p.m., the supporting side, the gun grabbers, had run out of people to testify. So from 3:30 to 11 was people just railing against this bill, adamantly opposed to it. And a lot of folks who are involved with Free State Colorado and Liberty on the Rocks either showed up in person or testified online. That was awesome. We had a huge show of support that day. And unfortunately, at the beginning of session last year, a big reason why the assault weapons ban wasn't able to make it out of committee is because the committee makeup was incredibly different. You had Bob Marshall on the committee. He is in a very, very competitive district, actually a pretty heavily red-leaning district. He won off of a fluke in 2022, only won by about 500 votes. And he's really branded himself as this moderate, especially on the gun issue. And he has been fairly good. He's been one of the better, probably the best Democrat in the House, at least. Him and Matt Martinez have been the two best Democrats in the House for the any sort of Second Amendment issues. They tend to vote with us 85 to 90% of the time. Sheila Leader as well has also been pretty good on the gun issue. So last year, you had Bob Marshall, you had Lindsay Doherty, who tends to be more moderate, you had Syed Sharbini on that committee, and he actually is no longer in the legislature. He ended up resigning just before session, and he was replaced by Julia Marvin, who's an absolute whack job, far left radical. But Syed Sharbini was a extremely pro-gun. He was actually better than some Republicans on the gun issue when he was in the state house last year. So we had all those people on judiciary, plus we had four Republicans at the time. We had right now that it was just Ryan Armagoss, Gabe Evans, Matt Soper. Last year we had Stephanie Luck in addition to those three Republicans. And Stephanie's one of the strongest pro-liberty, conservative, pro-gun legislators in the House. She's phenomenal. And unfortunately, she was kicked off that committee this year. So this year, last year we were able to wrangle up enough votes to kill that bill. And we also had Mark Snyder on that committee too. He's not that good on guns, but he doesn't really support a lot of the really extreme stuff. So he's a reliable vote on anything like a liability insurance mandate or an assault weapons ban, and things like sensitive spaces. He was actually a good vote on those this year, and he actually was a good vote on some of the gun bills last year as well. So he was on that committee as well. So it actually ended up getting killed. I think it was a 7-4 vote last year. Well, this year, Julian McCluskey completely changed the makeup of that committee. So instead of having more moderates on judiciary, she put the most radical left-wing Marxist on the committee. She replaced the people that I mentioned already because Bob Marshall was kicked off because he sued the caucus. Elizabeth Epps was on judiciary. She was kicked off, and they replaced her with Lorena Garcia, which that was not an improvement at all. Probably ended up worse with Lorena Garcia on that committee. And then Doherty stepped down, and then Sharbini resigned from the legislature. So we lost a bunch of our killing votes that we were able to use to kill the bill last year. So unfortunately, what ended up happening is Javier Mabry gets an appointment to the Judiciary Committee. I mentioned Lorena Garcia. We get Leslie Herod then on the Judiciary Committee, Jennifer Bacon as well on the Judiciary Committee, and Kathy Kipp. So now we went from a committee that was fairly moderate to probably one of the most left-wing radical committees out of both chambers. Judiciary was by far and away the most radical. And then you have Mike Weissman on there, who's the chair. He's another uber radical. He's trying to run for Senate now, which God help us if he gets into the Senate. So the committee makeup was completely changed. We knew that it was probably going to be a 7-4 vote in the opposite direction now. And then what ends up happening is Mark Snyder decides not to show up on the day of the assault weapons ban hearing this year. So it was a party line vote after about 13 hours of testimony. They did not care at all. They voted it through. They got it to the House floor. And then they sat on it for a couple of weeks. They sat on it until the second week of April. So almost a full month went by before the committee, for the committee to get it passed and then for it to get onto the House floor itself. And we were hearing all kinds of intel. We were hearing Monica Duran was actually vehemently opposed to the bill, and that she might not even bring it up for a vote, or if it does come up for a vote, it's likely to die on second reading. So we had heard all of that. Monica Duran is a gun owner. She carries constantly, from what I hear. Her sons are hunters. She actually stockpiles weapons. But on paper, she should be with us 100% on the gun issue, but she is most definitely not. Actually sponsored multiple gun control bills this year, including a guns and ammo tax. And for those who don't know, Monica Duran is the majority leader in the House for the Democrats. So she's in charge of setting the calendar for the most part. Her and the Speaker are the two most powerful officers in the House chamber. So we were hearing she wasn't going to bring it up for a vote. She put it on the calendar and then immediately took it off the calendar and then got mad at us for saying that she put it on the calendar, and she didn't like all the attention she was getting from it because of how soon the hearing was. So she waited and finally put it up for a vote in the second week of April. Well, that vote comes around and we knew it was going to be close. I predicted it was going to be somewhere within a 1 to 5 vote margin overall. And we did a couple plays. We did a motion to refer the bill back to committee. That way we could get a recorded vote before it went to third reading. That way we could at least see where we stood on all of that. And the Speaker, Julie McCluskey, and Monica Duran voted to refer the bill back to committee on second reading. So seconds happen on Friday. They go ahead and say, all right, we're going to bring this up for third reading on a Sunday. On a Sunday. So they bring it up for a Sunday. I was out of town that weekend. And so I had to race back from Wyoming to make the third reading vote. And I got there and I was counting the votes, and 3 of their 100% locked in votes didn't show up that day. Mike Weissman, Regina English, and there was one other Democrat who didn't show that day who was going to be a hard yes for them. And on third reading, you don't just need to get a majority of those present. You actually have to get 33 of the 65 members to vote in favor of your bill in order to actually get it passed on third reading and get it over to the Senate. Well, I'm counting up the votes and I'm seeing, okay, I don't think they have the votes to pass it. And we also, couple gun shop owners had called Representative Chad Clifford down in Centennial in House District 37, where he gave them his word saying he was going to vote against it. So I look and I say, okay, I don't think they have the votes. Well, it turns out at the 11th hour, honestly, at the 11th hour in the 59th minute, Monica Duran, Julie McCluskey, and Chad Clifford all flipped their votes to pass the assault weapons ban. It passed by 3 votes. Had those 3 voted the way they were said they were going to vote, it would have never gotten out of that chamber. And that's the thing. These people are scumbags. They lie to your face. You can never trust anything that these politicians say to you. You cannot trust them at all. So after that, and throughout the entire time, we were sending thousands of calls on some of these Democrats who were in competitive districts, people like Jennifer Parenti, Stephanie Vigil. We actually are endorsing Republican candidates against both of them, both of which who have filled out a 100% survey. And we are feeling very confident that they have a good chance of beating both Parenti and Vigil because they are in competitive districts and they voted in favor of one of the most controversial gun bills that the state has ever seen. So they voted in favor of that in a competitive district. We were targeting people like that. We were targeting people like Tish Morrow down in Pueblo. She's in a competitive district. We were targeting people like Megan Lukens, who actually voted right on the assault weapons ban. We were targeting a lot of people, Bob Marshall, Mark Snyder. They all voted. Most of the people we were targeting voted in favor of voted right on the assault weapons ban, except for the ones that I just mentioned. Tammy Story was another one in a competitive district who voted wrong. So we did all kinds of effort there. We put a bunch of calls in, and we actually, a lot of our efforts, I think, played a large role into getting, I believe it was 9 Democrats that turned against their party to vote against the assault weapons ban. Granted, most of them were in competitive districts. Some of them weren't. Some of them were termed out, like Barbara McLaughlin. She's termed out. She is in a competitive district, but she could have voted for it without any repercussions. We sent a mailer against Megan Lukens. She voted right on the assault weapons ban. We sent a mailer against Mary Young. She only won her race in 2022 by about 300 votes. She ended up voting right. She almost never votes with us on gun bills. So we put a lot of pressure on, and we came 3 votes shy from publicly executing this bill on the House floor. Unfortunately, we had some scumbags who were in fairly safe districts that turned on us, lied to their own constituents' faces, and then turned around and stabbed us in the back. So throughout that entire time, it gets over to the Senate, and we're waiting to hear which committee it's going to get assigned to, because the gun bills usually get sent to one of two committees. They either get sent to Judiciary, which is a 3-2 Democrat Republican makeup, but you have Senator Dylan Roberts on that committee who tends to vote with us on the gun bills probably 60% of the time. He's better on the gun bills than he is worse, but also he votes for some pretty bad stuff like the safe storage bill and the CBI Gestapo bill. And he's not a pro gun guy by any means, and he's kind of a scumbag, but he does vote right with us, and he would definitely vote against an assault weapons ban. The other committee is the State Affairs Committee. That is also a 3-2 Democrat Republican split, but the three Democrats on that committee are Chris Hansen, Tom Sullivan, and James Coleman, all of which are absolutely horrific on guns. Tom Sullivan, especially, has been one of the worst elected officials on guns. He has actually put his name on a lot of these bills. You'll see a lot of these really bad bills. Tom Sullivan will have his name on them. They're absolutely horrific, horrible on guns. So we were kind of waiting to hear how everything was going to turn out. We come to a couple weeks ago, they scheduled the hearing for the second to last day of session. Mind you, during this time, we had delivered 200,000 petitions to both the House and the Senate. During this time, we had put in about almost 60,000 calls across the board between the House, the Senate, and the governor. We sent Jared Polis about 15 to 20,000 calls. We sent him an obscene amount of calls throughout the entire session. So our pressure campaign was really, really heating up. It was getting towards the end of session, and Senator Julie Gonzalez announced that she was going to have her bill postponed indefinitely because, and she said in her statement, she said she wanted to do it outside of the pressure. She said she wanted to have more conversations about the policy outside of the pressure cooker of the Capitol. She felt the pressure. Everyone felt the pressure. And that's why they shelved it at the last minute. It was funny on the day of Sine Die, she came up to me and she's like, RMGO doesn't get credit for killing this bill. I was like, well, you wouldn't give us credit anyway, but you're killing the bill, and you mentioned how much pressure you're under. So I'm taking this as a win. So that was probably our biggest win of the session. I was very, very excited to see that this bill was killed. I mean, this bill would have decimated the gun industry. It would have made 90% of the inventory that you see in your local gun shop illegal. They would not have been able to make money, and they all would have gone out of business. And that was the end goal of this all. These people hate you. They hate your rights. And if they could, they would absolutely ban every single gun humanly possible. Like Stephen Woodrow and Mabry and Garcia have made that is their end goal multiple times throughout the session. So I want to take some time to quickly breeze through these other bills. I know most people are going to be pretty hung up on the assault weapons ban, so I wanted to spend a little bit more time talking about that. But I want to go ahead and just breeze through the rest of these bills really quick and just give an idea of where the status is and what we expect to happen.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, definitely appreciate it. Appreciate the deep dive because that was always the big question is I was asked quite a bit was why did this bill die? Was it because Polis didn't like it? Actually, an aide down at the Capitol for one of the Republican senators messaged me on Twitter and said that Tom Sullivan didn't like the bill. That there was some other Democrats I'd heard through the grapevine that James Coleman also maybe had heard from some of his friends who are gun shop owners, and they kind of pushed back a little bit. So people are always wondering what's the whole story, and it's hard to say, right? I mean, who really knows? But definitely the pressure campaign and the public outcry is really what made that huge impact, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it was the pressure. It was the pressure. A lot of that pressure was generated by Rocky Mountain gun owners. Probably the
Yeah.
lion's share of that pressure was generated by Rocky Mountain gun owners. We did everything in our power to make sure everyone was aware of this. And we wanted to make sure that everyone knew and that every single person that knew about it was putting an obscene amount of pressure, an unbearable amount of pressure on their legislators. And the senators tend to be a little bit more limp-wristed than the House members. They don't really like controversy.
Yeah.
They really like being a senator. The House, the people run for the House because they want to actually make policy, whether it's good policy or terrible policy. People run to the Senate because they want to be senators. They want to hold the title as senator and they want to say, oh, I'm in the upper chamber. These people, the senators I've really learned this year are complete egomaniacs. There are some good senators, but they are egomaniacs by a long shot. So this bill, Senate Bill 131, this was originally going to be a gun-free zone expansion bill. A sensitive spaces bill is what they were calling it. And this was a carbon copy of a policy that was passed in California at the end of 2023 that pretty much outlawed carry, open and concealed, even if you have a permit, in 90% of public spaces. So government property, and it was all government property. So the county fair would become a gun-free zone now because it was government property. Churches, synagogues, all places of worship, zoos, museums, aquariums, sports stadiums, public parks, all schools, college campuses. I mean, it was just, it pretty much banned, would effectively ban carry, legal carry in 90% of public spaces. We put an insane amount of pressure on Senator Dylan Roberts over that bill because that bill's first stop in the Senate was the Judiciary Committee, which he is a member of, and he is the swing deciding vote. So we put an insane amount of pressure on him. We probably sent 2,000 calls into his office in like a 6-week period. We made his life a living hell. And he finally, the day before the hearing, says the chair, Julie Gonzalez, was like, listen, we don't like this bill. We're getting all, which by the way, it's the same Julie Gonzalez who's the sponsor of the assault weapons ban. She calls me up, says, hey, we don't like this bill. We're getting an insane amount of pressure over it. It's too expansive. We need to shelve it for the time being. So they had a hearing. It was action only or testimony only. And then they shelved it for about a week and a half. Then they pulled it back off the shelf. And Dylan Roberts did this great compromise amendment where actually he did strike out about 80% of the bill. He lowered the gun-free zone expansion from I think it was 30 to now 5, and courthouses, and like legislative buildings and schools are already covered under federal law. So he didn't really expand gun-free zones. But the biggest problem was he converted this bill into a sensitive spaces bill to just be a straight up campus carry ban. Um, that was a serious problem. And we strongly opposed that. Unfortunately, that did pass through both chambers. It did get to the governor's desk. We're waiting to see what he's going to do. He has signed some of these bills quite quickly. I'll get into those later. He signed 3 bills so far, and those bills they're not good, but they were definitely the less controversial of the bills that came up this session. And as I mentioned earlier, he's actually really been handing out vetoes like candy to a lot of these super radical Democrat senators and representatives. They're really unhappy about it. They've been throwing fits about it on Twitter for the past couple of days. We'll see what he does with these bills, with this bill in particular.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, let's people can still put that pressure on the governor, still kind of reach out, at least make some noise on social media at the very least. Please email, call. The governor has, I believe, 30 days from when it passes to sign it into law or to veto it, excuse me. If he doesn't sign it, he can sign it, of course, like he loves to do for his little publicity stunt. But if he doesn't sign it, if he doesn't do anything, it'll automatically become law, but he can veto it and stop it. Another great point I want to bring up for rmgo.org/bill watch, the website we're at today, is you can actually click on any of these bill titles here and go in and read the bill. So if you want some more information about what exactly is in the final version of the bill that passed, this is still your best resource here. So perfect. Appreciate that information. We can move through the rest of these here real quick if you'd like, if you have time.
Sure. Oh yeah, no. We'll go through all these. So House Bill 1270, that was a bill that would have required gun owners to carry liability insurance like you would for your car. It was an absolutely asinine requirement. No other state has actually passed this. This would be a first time ever in the history of the nation that something this absolutely moronic would be passed. You'd have to pull out an extra umbrella policy so that if a criminal is trying to break into your house and you shoot them, the family can sue you for wrongful death, for damages. Absolutely insane. And also, you would be penalized if you owned a gun and you didn't have liability insurance. In addition, it would have given insurance companies the first right of refusal to deny you a homeowner's insurance, renter's insurance, or insurance for your business policy simply because you have firearms if you pose a quote substantial risk. At which point you then have to go beg. You'd have to go beg the courts to give you an exemption, and then they could just decide, no, you don't get an exemption. You can't have guns, or you either have guns or you have insurance. Um, we were also hearing reports, some of our members were calling their insurance companies to say, hey, if this goes into effect, what do I have to do? The insurance companies were asking for the makes and models of their guns, the pictures, and their serial numbers. And they were trying, it's a gun registry. That's the fact of the matter. This is a gun registry. And we made that point over and over and over again. And these idiot Democratic lawmakers are like, it's not a gun registry. The insurance companies are private. Well, the congressional U.S. Congress, House Judiciary Committee, did an investigation and found out that the FBI has been snooping around in people's credit card transactions without a warrant, specifically gun owners, specifically tracking gun purchases unconstitutionally. So if you think that the insurance companies aren't just going to hand all this information over to the government or to the state or to CBI or worse to the ATF or the FBI or the NSA, I have a great beachfront property to sell you in Idaho. You're just insane. You have no idea what's going on around you. Fortunately, the Democrats, they were only able to pass that bill out of the House by one vote. You can thank our good old buddy Chad Clifford for lying again and saying that he was going to vote against it on the floor. He was the deciding vote both in committee and on the floor to get this bill out. It was disgusting. It was absolutely disgusting. Unbelievable. Just straight up lied to everyone. Which these politicians are liars. So, I mean, it doesn't surprise me, but it's equally as infuriating. And he went ahead, got that bill out. It did pass out of the Senate committee, but the leadership in the Senate really had no desire to make their members take a vote on something this controversial in an election year. Absolutely insane. No, they were not going to put something this ridiculous up for a vote. And I am 90% sure Jared Polis would not have been on board with this. This probably would have gotten vetoed from him. So that was another big victory. It's not as obscene as the assault weapons ban, but this still would have been really bad. I would probably rank this as, I would say, the second or third worst bill that came through this session. It was a very, very big victory that we were able to kill this.
Nice, yeah. Great. And that's something that gives me some optimism, some hope. That white pill you mentioned earlier is the fact that, people think that these Democrats are a total monolithic type of group, that they're all as crazy as their worst members. And thankfully, that's not entirely the case. So, through the work of RMGO and people across the state, activists, voters, people showing up, some of these bills can be stopped. And that should really be encouraging to people out there that we can turn the tide here in Colorado.
No, 100%. And the biggest thing too is it's all about, we do political trainings with the Foundation for Applied Conservative Leadership. And in there, we talk about how politicians are predictable. Politicians, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, they only care about election, re-election, and running for higher office. And if you threaten their lifeblood, because losing an election is political death for a politician. They lose their election, they die, they're no longer a politician. If they win, they live to fight another day, and then they can go sell out and go ahead and cut more deals and slime around and run for an even higher office and get more power where they'll slime around even more. I mean, that's really all what this is all about. So it doesn't matter who it is. You could be a radical right winger or you could be a hardcore leftist. If you threaten a politician's reelection, you will see how quickly they're willing to compromise on their values. It's kind of embarrassing. It's kind of sad, but it's also very, very helpful and advantageous for us because all we need to do is really threaten their reelection. And that's why we engage with the grassroots. The only thing that they answer to is large, demonstrable groups of angry voters. That's the only thing they answer to. If you can rally up a bunch of angry voters, you can get the politician to A, do the right thing, or B, get all up in their ego, dig their heels in, do the wrong thing, and lose their reelection.
Yeah, I'd
Either
say
way, I see that as a win-win.
100% win-win. Just to your point, yeah, for most politicians, their values are just getting reelected. Their values are what serves them the best in their career. That's usually about it, unfortunately. Not all of them, of course, but the vast majority.
Exactly. And that's why you see so many of these scumbag politicians stray and run from controversy, is because they want to get reelected. They don't want anyone to be mad at them. They want everyone to be happy. Oh, look at me. Look how many bills I passed. Those are the type of people that are the worst, but they are also the easiest to pressure. So even commies become predictable politicians when they realize their elections might be on the line. And leadership becomes very, very predictable because they're terrified of losing seats. And if they lose seats, then they lose their majority leader status. And if they piss off their caucus enough, they might lose their leadership status in their caucus completely. So that's where you really can use a lot of their ambitions against them. And that's what we did throughout session.
Nice.
So the next bill, this bill is House Bill 1174. You can see I mentioned earlier Monica Duran, first name that shows up on that bill. Mark Snyder, second name that shows up on that bill. And that is going to increase the requirements to obtain a concealed handgun permit. So while we have 29 other states that are moving forward and passing, Vermont law constitutional carry to allow their citizens to be able to be more free to defend themselves, to carry without a permit, and also in those states, we have seen crime drastically decrease. We have Colorado that's moving backwards, trying to make it harder to get a concealed carry permit. And now we're the number 3 most dangerous state in the country. Crime is skyrocketing here. So what we really see is these Democrats, because they want to satisfy their masters at Moms Demand Action and Brady and Everytown, and they want to get that juicy Michael Bloomberg money, they're actually moving us backwards and they're making us overall less safe, more like failed states like California and Illinois and New York, where crime is rampant. People are just getting shot. Gun crime is off the charts. Chicago's has the most gun deaths in the entire country. And they try to say, oh, well, it's illegal firearms being shipped over from Indiana. Well, I thought these gun control laws were supposed to stop illegal firearms. I thought that's what this was all about. Oh, what you're saying that your laws aren't working because people are violating the law. You're literally making every single point that every pro-gun advocate has ever made. So they want to make it now to where you have to pass a live fire exam after taking an 8-hour class. You need to pass that live fire exam with 70% competency. And now, don't get me wrong, training is incredibly important. I think that responsible gun ownership, I hate saying that because they've started trying to use the responsible gun owners jargon, but true responsible gun owners go out and they get trained. If you're a new gun owner, you should be spending more on training than you are on decking out your gun with all kinds of fancy bells and whistles. It looks great, but do you know how to use it? And do you know how to use it properly without putting people in more danger? That is so important. Training is vital, but government mandated competency tests in order to exercise a God given right is absolutely unacceptable. And the worst part about it is they're also trying to require, should this bill get signed into law, and unfortunately it has passed both chambers, should it get signed into law, they want to make it now to where you have to take a written exam and pass with 80% if you want to get your concealed handgun license. So they want to make you shoot like an Olympian and have the knowledge of a lawyer in order to exercise a basic God-given right. Absolutely insane. I am not optimistic that Jared Polis will veto this. This is a gun bill that is right up his alley. It's bad, but it's not traditionally considered an extremely like left-wing controversial bill like an assault weapons ban. This is a bill that he will probably gladly sign. I'll probably do a whole little kumbaya ceremony with Moms Demand Action like he did for those other three bills, which we'll get to next, that he signed into law.
Wow. Yeah, how disappointing, from our supposedly libertarian governor there. I just can't,
He's an idiot.
just holding my breath to see these East Coast establishment libertarians like Reason Magazine, John Stossel, those people come after Polis.
Yeah,
They
Josh
love him
Eagle.
so much. Yeah, it's just absolutely
Yeah,
ridiculous.
little sidebar here. Josh Eagle went ahead and put out a tweet the other day talking about how Jared Polis is a great libertarian governor and how he should run for president and how he would destroy Donald Trump in a general election, which I don't think he would, but that's neither here nor there. Oh, he would destroy Donald Trump. He'd be amazing. He'd be amazing. And what the funniest, most ironic part about it is he put that tweet out the exact same day that Jared Polis signed two gun control bills. And the comments, he was getting absolutely demolished in the comments. And it was so funny. It was just poetic justice. I'm sorry, I digress. We'll get back to the bills. But yeah, a lot of these, like, they call them the Beltway libertarians. A lot of them aren't even
Yeah,
referring to themselves as libertarians anymore. They're going the whole classical liberal or neoliberal
yeah,
route, which is what they were to begin with. They're fiscally, not even fiscally conservative, they're fiscally moderate, very socially liberal, and kind of squishy on a lot of other issues that libertarians actually care about, such as foreign wars. All these people are coming out and supporting Ukraine and Israel now. Yeah, those people are not to be taken seriously in the slightest.
yeah. I agreed there. So yeah, unfortunately, we got three bills that our horrible authoritarian governor Jared Polis has signed into law. What do we need to know about these? What do gun owners in Colorado need to know about these bills?
Yes. So I'm going to rattle these off really quick because while they are bad, they were also the simplest and shortest of bills. I'm pretty sure Senate Bill 66 was, I think, 2 pages, and Senate Bill 3 was 1 page. The Democrats can be efficient when they really want to. Senate Bill 66 creates a new merchant category code for firearms. This is actually very, very problematic. It would allow the Attorney General's office to track these gun purchases based off of their merchant category code. Because for merchant category codes for debit and credit cards, when you go and you look at your bank statement or you look at your credit card statement, you see these little categories that your transactions are put in. So if I go to Chick-fil-A after this and I spend 20 bucks, my credit card statement's going to say 20 bucks, Chick-fil-A, food and beverage. That's the merchant category code. Currently, if I go to Shields and I buy an AR-15, it shows up as sporting goods. If I go to Shields and I buy a fishing rod, it shows up as sporting goods. So right now they can't tell the difference. They cannot track the purchases of firearms because they can't tell the difference between buying, a 50 BMG or buying a fishing rod or buying a backpack at Cabela's. That is very good. Well, now they want to make it to where firearms is its own merchant category code. So now when you go and you buy your rifle, or even if you buy optics or ammo, or even if you buy just a new charging handle for your gun, something so minute as a charging handle or a new trigger, you will now be tracked. And the big problem with this is that we're seeing these the ESG policies. I don't know if you talk a lot about ESG on your show or not, um, but you have these ESG policies where you have these big banks now that are just blocking cards for or blocking customers from using their cards or refusing to underwrite certain industries just because they don't like them. You're seeing this happen with gun stores, you're seeing this happen with marijuana dispensaries, you're seeing this happen with any sort of company or business that the bank or whoever is in charge of the bank doesn't like. They will just completely block their customers from being able to use their cards there. And this is running into an issue because Wells Fargo has now started blocking marijuana dispensaries. So now if you go to a marijuana dispensary, a legal marijuana dispensary, and try to swipe your Wells Fargo card, they'll block it. Now, whatever people's views are on marijuana is irrelevant. The problem here is you already have banks and credit card companies that are just not allowing you to use cards at certain businesses. This would give them the opportunity. The issue here is yes, your gun purchases can be tracked by the attorney general, but I think the even bigger looming issue now is it now starts to allow these woke banks who have adopted ESG policies to literally stop their customers from using their cards to buy guns and ammo. Disarmament via corporatism is what we are looking at here. That's what this bill is putting into place. And this is a bill that is wholly endorsed by the ATF. They want to actually implement this policy nationally. So that would allow these credit card companies to do that. And it's absolutely insane. And on top of that, too, it would also could lead to credit card processors saying that they're not going to underwrite gun shops anymore. Because if the credit card companies are not allowing their cards to be used at gun shops, the processors are either going to jack their fees up or they're just going to say, we're not making any money off of this. Screw this. And then you can't even use credit cards at gun shops, gun shows, gun stores across the board. Anything involving firearms, you would not be able to use a credit card at. And now people are saying, well, that's great. We can just pay cash. Well, it's only a matter of time before they ban that too. Because the ATF has already come out and said that using cash to buy firearms is domestic terror behavior. So what they literally want to do is if they can't ban the guns, they'll just ban them by not allowing you to be able to purchase them. It won't be a outright ban, it'll be a de facto ban through corporate and monetary policy. That's their new strategy now because they lost in Bruin, they lost in McDonald, and they lost in Heller. And they know that if they just try to ban the guns outright, like what they're trying to do in Superior, Louisville, and Boulder County right now, we immediately got an injunction on that. Almost immediately got an injunction on that. So they're seeing that they're losing in the courts. So now what they're trying to do is they're going after the business and the monetary policy. And that is really, really concerning because then once they're able to do that, if they start doing it with guns, they're going to expand that out to other things. That's when you start getting into this whole digital currency stuff. That's when you start getting into social credit score. I mean, this kind of stuff is laying the groundwork for that. And we all need to be very, very aware of that.
Wow, yeah, Brave New World, huh? They're using this new technological schemes to deprive us of our rights. And yeah, unfortunately, we've seen people already, being investigated by the ATF or by the Department of Justice for having suspicious behavior of purchasing too many guns. I mean, unfortunately, that's a reality out there. So just another mechanism in which they can track that. So do you know, Ian? So would that code, that merchant code, would it just apply to the place? So like you're at Shields, if you buy clothes, is it going to show up as that kind of category code as well? I mean, are they able to distinguish between actually each item? It seems like that might be a little difficult for the credit card companies to know the difference between an AR-15 you're buying and that fishing pole, right?
Yeah, so this is where it gets interesting. This would only apply to businesses that are based in Colorado. So Bass Pro Shops is based in Missouri. Merchant category code won't apply to them.
Okay.
But what
Wow.
it
So it's
will apply to is your local mom and pop gun shop down the street.
wow. So even worse, just an attack on our local small businesses, our mostly
Exactly.
family-owned gun stores, gun shops, FFLs here in Colorado. Wow, they're really going to be suffering the most because yeah, once that catches on in the 2A community, right? A lot of people say, well, heck, I'm going to use my credit card, but I'm going to go to, one of these big box stores to buy. I don't want to take the risk of buying at the local gun store. So it's really insidious that way. I didn't realize that. So absolutely horrendous.
Yeah, it's very, very scary. It's horrible. It is a business killing policy. And this actually ties perfectly into the next bill, which is Senate Bill 3, which is what I've dubbed the CBI Gestapo bill. And what that would do was that would deploy, it would give the Colorado Bureau of Investigation a illegal firearms unit. So currently, they simply do forensics and they assist local law enforcement upon request. This would allow them to go bypass local law enforcement, bypass the Second Amendment sanctuary jurisdictions where the sheriffs and the county commission has said, hey, we are not going to abide by the 2013 magazine ban. We are not going to enforce the ghost gun ban. We are not going to enforce red flag gun confiscation. This would then go ahead and send CBI in to bypass it to literally become Jared Polis's own personal enforcement force. His own enforcement division is what this is going to become. And they can start investigations off of tips. There's no due process, no probable cause in the slightest. And what they can do is if they're tracking a gun purchase, let's say that they get a tip from some lefty that Joe Smith's gun shop is selling 50-round magazines, and then they go in, they tap into the credit card processor, they look at the merchant category codes, they see who's purchased for the last 2 to 3 weeks. On They could even go back as far as the last 2 years. They could even go back as far as since the magazine ban took effect. Look at all their merchant category codes, or actually it would have to be post the merchant category code going into effect. But they could go back and look at all the merchant category codes, say, oh, Ian Escalante bought a magazine from Joe Smith's gun shop. Well, let's send CBI to his house. So that bill, unfortunately, was signed into law. Very concerning, the new power that unelected, bureaucratic, so-called law enforcement, because I unelected law enforcement is not law enforcement. It's just not. If you only report to the attorney general and the government, or and the governor, sorry, you are, I don't see you as a neutral party at this point.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. You see, the point behind this bill is, if your local government, if your local sheriff isn't willing to enforce these egregious violations of your rights, if your local police department doesn't want to take the time to come after you, then, they're going to send in the state police basically to do it. And that's kind of what the whole point of this is. It's absolutely authoritarian and a total centralization of police powers under this Senate Bill 3. So, shame on Jared Polis and everybody who voted for this one for sure.
Absolutely. And this was almost a completely party line vote. What's really funny, though, is actually the radicals like Tim Hernandez and Elizabeth Epps opposed this bill.
Yeah, defund the police people, probably
Yeah, that's
you
literally
know.
why. Yeah. Well, broken clocks are right twice a day.
So we got one more here that has been signed into law.
Yes. So this was a whole debacle surrounding this bill. So this would force you to lock your guns up in your car, which is asinine. Apparently, this is supposed to cut down on car theft because according to Lorena Garcia and Beth McGann, when criminals are going around and looking for cars to break into, if they see a big black box with Glock on it, they're not going to realize it's a gun, or maybe a small safe in the back seat. They're not going to realize it's a gun. Or if they realize it's a gun, it's gonna be too hard for them to open it. So they're just gonna go, move on to the next car. They're gonna steal the car. They're gonna steal the car, or they're just gonna break into the car and take the safe. And these little hard-sided containers, you can literally cut through them with a pair of pliers. They are not reliable at all. I mean, they're great. They're easy to carry stuff around in, but I would not call that a secure storage of a firearm. So originally, they made it to where you also couldn't put it in your glove box, your glove compartment, or your console, or your trunk, which that was even more ridiculous. So now you're going to have to put it in plain view, or you're going to have to put it under the seat. And most of these safes don't even fit under seat. So now you're just literally going to have it in there in plain view. Absolutely ridiculous. And so it passed out of the House. It went over to the Senate, and cue our old buddy Dylan Roberts, he actually went ahead and filed a decent amendment to this bill that would make it to where it would increase penalties for stealing firearms. So how they had it is that you would get a stronger penalty for not securing your firearm, for not safely storing your firearm, than the person who stole your gun would get. So Dylan Roberts put these amendments in. One was to increase the minimum penalty for stealing a firearm. They made it like a class 1 misdemeanor, which is the highest level of misdemeanor now. And then they also made it if you were a repeat offender, you would get a class 6 felony. So now if you were repeatedly stealing guns, you would then be charged with a felony, which I mean, I consider myself very libertarian. I don't really like the government, but I do believe if there is a purpose of government, it is to punish criminals who steal things, who violate our rights to the fullest extent of the law, not coddle them, not let them out on cashless bail, and sure as hell not give them a softer penalty than the person they stole from. That is just asinine. So they sent it back to the House. The House was screaming bloody murder. Literally, Leslie Harriet and Lorena Garcia went up to the well and started screaming because they said it was racist. So they ended up spending 2 weeks in conference committee over this thing. Finally, on the last day of session, they get it up on the Senate floor for a conference committee report vote. And Kyle Mullica decided not to show up for work that day. And when they took the vote, it was 17-17 on the conference committee report. So the first vote they took was a vote not to concur with the conference committee report. That was 17-17, so it failed. Then they did another vote. They ended up voting I think they voted twice, and they were both deadlocked at 17-17. And then they sent Julie Gonzalez around to whip all the votes, and all the Democrats who were on our side backed down, and they hollered and screamed and said, "This is a bad policy, but we'll just fix it next year." And they ended up passing it and sent it to the governor's desk. So the increased penalties for stolen firearm amendments were taken out of the bill. The penalty was reduced to pretty sure it's less than a speeding ticket now if you don't safely store your firearm. I think it's like a maximum $100 fine, which is still incredibly stupid. Um, and then they kept in the amendments for the glove box and the trunk and whatever. This bill was really just more of an asinine bill. It is an infringement more than it was a severe infringement like the assault weapons ban. Like the government has no business telling me how to store my firearm, or has nor do they have any business telling me what I can and cannot do in my own home or in my car, which is an extension of my home. That's a bunch of BS. But this bill is definitely one of the least bad bills that was put through this session. Kyle Mullica has a very gelatinous spine. He probably didn't show up to work that day specifically so he could miss that vote. I don't know for sure, but it wouldn't surprise me. And actually, we're going to talk all about Kyle Mullica during the guns and ammo tax.
All
So
right.
that bill passed out of both chambers. And because, thank God for the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, I mean, let's be honest, thank God for it, because this now has to go for a vote on the 2024 ballot. Now, do I have faith in the Colorado electorate? I have more faith after Prop HH. To see how Prop HH just got absolutely annihilated, I do think that Colorado is not as bad off as people thought it was post 2022. We actually saw people who had not voted get off their couch and actually come out and vote against Prop HH. This bill would add a 6.5% excise tax at the point of sale on firearms, firearms accessories, and ammunition. Initially, Monica Duran, when she filed the bill, there's Monica Duran again, she made it an 11% tax on guns and ammunition. And then she came under pressure. She cut it to a 9% tax. And then when it crossed over to the Senate, Kyle Mullica, who's the Senate Finance Chair, was actually saying he was going to kill the bill in committee because finance is also a 3-2 Democrat Republican committee. He was talking about how he was planning on killing it. And what ended up happening is Lorena Garcia and Lisa Cutter and the Women's Caucus. I have a different term that I use for that caucus, but it is not appropriate to be repeated on YouTube or anywhere that's going to be public. But I'm sure you can imagine where I'm going with that. they sent an open letter saying that Kyle Mullica supports domestic violence and hates victims and all that kind of stuff. So he cut a deal with Chris Hansen and said, "Hey, if you cut the bill, if you cut the tax to 6.5%, I'll vote for it. I'll get it out of committee." Again, gelatinous spine, honestly, non-existent spine, and I ended up tweeting later that day from my personal Twitter account, and I said, breaking new species of invertebrate discovered in Senate Finance Committee today. And I found the worst picture humanly possible of Kyle Mullica and put the picture of him on there. And he ended up getting all butthurt about it. He was like, "You called me an invertebrate?" I was like, "Yeah, honestly, I think that was probably the nicest thing I could have said about you." But that is heading to the ballot. We do still have a shot of killing this, though. We need to spread the word to our friends, to our neighbors, to everyone we know, and do a strong concerted get out the vote effort. RMGO is going to be doing a strong concerted get out the vote effort against this. Hopefully we can kill it and we can stop them from trying to price us out of firearms. Because again, this is a death by 1,000 cuts package. All of these bills were a package. These weren't standalone bills. This was the 2024 Second Amendment Extinction Package. That's what we called it. That's what I personally dubbed it. And it was a death by 1,000 cuts. One bill, the assault weapons ban could have single-handedly killed the firearms industry in the state of Colorado, but they had all these other bills that even if they couldn't pass their crown jewel, then they still would do severe damage to the gun industry. And that puts us into the next bill, which is the state permitting for gun shops. House Bill 1353. We are putting an organized pressure campaign on Governor Polis to veto this bill. This is probably liability insurance, this bill, and the assault weapons ban were the three worst bills from this session. This bill, actually, I pretty much explained it earlier, implements an Illinois-style firearms licensure for firearms dealers. It is very bad. It will have a very, very negative impact on small businesses. And also, we could see a lot of the big box stores just stop selling firearms altogether. So this bill, coupled with the assault weapons ban, would have been the extinction of the gun industry in Colorado. This bill standalone is still going to do a serious amount of damage. That is why we are pressuring Governor Polis to veto it. And finally, the other victory we had this session was House Bill 1310. That was a bill that would have pretty much gotten rid of school resource officers across the board, which is ridiculous because they say we got to pass an assault weapons ban to stop the children from dying. Also, let's not have armed guards at schools. Absolutely
Absolutely
ridiculous.
ridiculous. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean,
Yeah.
do you think part of the reason they killed this bill is because that, in my mind, is because they amended that sensitive spaces bill down to be just school grounds, so it's kind of like duplicating the work almost, in my opinion.
Yeah, but also the sensitive spaces bill doesn't do anything to the school resource officer program. This would have pretty much gotten rid of it completely. So the Democrats, they cannibalized over this bill. They made themselves look very stupid, and this would have made them look ridiculously stupid if they would have passed this bill. Jared Polis also likely would have vetoed it. So thankfully, we were able to kill that. The last thing I want to talk about on today, I know we've been going at this for over an hour now, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I want to talk about not just the Democrats, because we rail a lot against the Democrats, and they've obviously have been public enemy number one. But I think it would be ignorant of me not to talk to gun owners and your listeners here in the state of Colorado about the problematic Republicans that we had this session. And the Republicans, it tends to be more incompetence than it is really evil or nefarious. But a lot of times, incompetence from Republicans leads to very, very bad things happening. Cole Wist, a Republican, sponsoring the 2018 red flag law, literally being the brainchild of the red flag law here in Colorado, led to it getting actually passed in 2019 and then expanded in 2023. So time and again, you see these Republicans that want to placate or they want to try to say, oh, hi, look at me. I care about gun violence too. When in reality, it's not about gun violence at the end of the day. It is about disarmament. So the bill's not on here, but Senate Bill 107 was a bill that was sponsored by Representatives Gabe Evans and Senator Bob Gardner. And those guys aren't bad people. I wouldn't necessarily consider them to be hardcore gun grabbers. They're not, an Elizabeth Epps, or they're not even a Cole Wiss type. I mean, Bob Gardner did not vote in favor of red flag gun confiscation. Um, but sometimes, again, there's some incompetence. I think they're good people, but this was a tactical blunder, a severe tactical blunder, and I'll tell you why. One, look at that title. That title could encompass literally anything. Okay. Second, you got to take into account the political environment. The Democrats control 46 of the 65 seats in the state house, in 23 of the seats, the 35 seats in the state Senate. They have the votes to do whatever the hell they want. And that includes Julie Gonzalez running an amendment to make it to where if you carry in a sensitive space, you lose your gun rights permanently. Thankfully, that was a major crisis averted. Now, I also don't agree with this bill on principle. I think if you have a marijuana offense, and let's say you got busted for marijuana possession in 2008 before marijuana was legal, the way this bill is written, you'd probably lose your gun rights permanently because that is a drug charge. I understand they're looking at people who traffic in fentanyl and meth and all that, but I mean, there's a lot of unintended consequences here, and this could lead to a lot of people who have convictions for nonviolent offenses losing their gun rights permanently, which I think is just flat out wrong. That is a serious problem. Um, Additionally, you should not be running a bill like this. A literally a bill to expand the prohibited persons list in a legislature that has so many anti-gun radicals in it. Thankfully, we were able to blow the whistle on it. We were able to, I'm not entirely sure how much of it was us or just the lack of appetite for it in the Senate, but this bill never even made it out of the Senate. So that amendment was never done. It was a rumor. It was a credible rumor that was corroborated by several reliable sources, but they ended up just killing the bill in the end. I think because people got a hold of it and there was going to be a lot of resistance. I was even hearing at one point Julie Gonzalez was planning on kicking Bob Gardner off the bill, taking it over herself and turning it into a sensitive, or pretty much if you carry in a gun-free zone, you lose your gun rights permanently. So crisis was averted there. Bob Gardner is termed out. He is likely, I mean, he's up there in age. I don't think he'll be, involved in any sort of major political races again anytime soon. I could be wrong, but he seems kind of ready to ride off into the sunset. But Gabe Evans is running for Congressional District 8. He is running, if you live in Southern Weld County or Adams, even a little sliver of Larimer County, you are going to be in CD8, and Gabe Evans is running to be your representative. Now, with that being said, Rocky Mountain Gun Owners Super PAC is not a federal PAC. We will not be endorsing in this race. But what I am saying is that if you live in CD8, I think it's very important that you have two state representatives, one former state representative, one current state representative running in the race. I think it's incredibly important to see how they voted, how they acted, and what kind of tactical positions they took as well, because tactical positions are incredibly important. This could have gone completely the other way, and this could have been the 11th bill in the 2024 Second Amendment extinction package. And Gabe Evans and Bob Gardner would have been responsible for people who carry in gun-free zones losing their gun rights permanently. They would have been responsible for that. So that's something you need to take into consideration. Again, this is not an endorsement. I think Gabe Evans is a great guy. I think he's a pretty good legislator. I think Yannick Joshi was a good guy. I'm speaking not as RMGO, I'm speaking as Ian Escalante. I think he was a good legislator as well. But I think folks who live in CD8, you have to look at this. You have to take all of this into consideration, not just what they try to put out on social media, not their vague public statements, and sure as hell not their campaign promises.
No, that's a great point for sure. And yeah, unfortunately, some of these Republican legislators have a blind spot when it comes to this law enforcement type of issue. I mean, this idea that felons, if they serve their time, they're out of jail, they've been in jail, they're out of jail. I think they should have their rights restored as an individual. If they're that dangerous, where they shouldn't have a weapon, they keep them in jail. They should still be in jail
Exactly.
if they're that dangerous. But if they're
Exactly.
out of jail, they're out of jail, able to drive a car, do it, just live a normal life, then they should have all of their rights restored. So the idea that Gardner and Evans have, and probably anybody else who is supporting this bill, that you lose your rights for life because of one thing, I mean, is absolutely ridiculous. It's if you're out of jail, you're a free person. We're a free country. That's what that's how it should be. So yeah, definitely
No,
from a liberty perspective, would 100% oppose this bill.
exactly. And the biggest thing too is this again really shows back to the tactical thing that I was talking to you about. This was 100% a bill so that the Republicans could say, look at us, we ran a gun bill too. We care about gun violence. That's what this is about. That is what this is about. This is 100% about them being able to say, hey, the Democrats say that we want children to die. Look at us. We care about gun violence and stopping gun violence and gun safety and whatever garbage, that the left is spewing out. This is them 100% letting the far left, the anti-gunners, control the narrative and playing right into that narrative. That's what stunts like this are. You cannot have politicians who play by the rules of the far left. We need to be playing by our own rules. And what our own rules are is the Second Amendment shall not be infringed. The right to keep and bear arms is a God given right, and all gun laws are infringements. Those are the things that we need to be standing on. We need to be standing on the fact that the reason why violent crime is going through the roof is not because there's guns on the streets. It's because of these restorative soft on crime policies where it's not like they're just allowing the guy who was arrested for marijuana out of jail on cashless bail. I'd have no problem with that. Is that they're actually allowing, you know, people who are repeat car thieves, people who are involved with the cartel, people who are involved in gangs, people who literally steal firearms and sell them to the cartel and to gangs, that they're allowing these people out on PR bonds. That is the narrative that we need to be striking. And we need to be putting the onus on the Democrats that the reason why all these shootings are happening is because they're allowing people who we know are violent to get out of jail and they're disarming peaceful citizens. That is the type of legislation, that is the narrative that we should be running. And those are the rules that we should be playing by, because the arguments that the left and the anti-gunners are using are patently false. They are lies. They are purely based on lies and fake statistics. The statistics they throw out are so incredibly ridiculous. They say, well, disprove them. I can disprove them because they have to do with guns that literally don't exist, like the AR 556. I'm sorry, Colorado ceasefire. The AR 556 does not exist. It is not a real gun. So I don't want to hear statistics about how the fully semi automatic AR 556 that can shoot a bullet that can break the sound barrier at 2,000 miles an hour and cover 6 football fields in a split second, which, by the way, I want that gun. I'm not going to listen to your statistics about the mortality rate of the assault rifle 15. Like, no, I'm not going to listen to that because it's purely based on lies. It is emotional manipulation into guilting and gaslighting people into giving up their rights. That's what this is all about.
Well said, Ian. So definitely encourage people, if you're not a member of Rocky Mountain Gun Owners, please become a member of Rocky Mountain Gun Owners. They're down there fighting for our rights. I mean, Ian, you did an incredible job this year. Thank you for everything you did. I really look forward to seeing you at the banquet. Look forward to seeing, Congressman Massey and Kyle Rittenhouse there. It's going to be a great time. So really encourage people to show up there as well. And check out that endorsements page. See if any of those are in your area, in your district. So, Ian, I appreciate you. Any parting words here to leave us with?
Absolutely. Come to the banquet. That's going to be the biggest thing. Unfortunately, we don't have Michael Bloomberg money. We cannot drop millions of dollars in elections like every town, like Brady, like Moms Demand Action. Our average donation is $90. The reason we're doing the Save Our Second banquet is an opportunity, one, to get our supporters and to get Second Amendment lovers across the state together, but it's also so that we can build our war chest up so we can take out the low hanging fruit. There's absolutely no reason why Stephanie Vigil should be reelected next cycle. There's absolutely no reason why Jennifer Parenti should be reelected. There's absolutely no justifiable reason for Democrats to control 46 of the 65 seats in the state house. Yes, the demographics have changed, but there is still a very, very large amount of people that are adamantly opposed to not just what they're doing on guns, but across the board. Adamantly opposed. There are people who moved here from Connecticut and California to get away from East Coast and left wing policies. They came here because Colorado used to be a bastion of freedom, liberty, and autonomy, but now it's just turning into a light version of these failed hellscapes and war zones like Illinois and New York, Connecticut, and California. So, in order to do this, we need to be able to kick these people out of office. That's the only thing that is going to change this. If we don't kick them out of office, they're just going to keep running the assault weapons ban over and over and over again until they finally pass it. So we need to make sure that we take away their vote margin.
100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think if 2023, the gun ban didn't make it out of committee, like you said earlier, 2024, it makes it out of the House. What's 2025 going to look like unless some of these anti-gun legislators lose their election campaigns? I mean, it's scary stuff. We know what they're capable of. We know what they want to do. So people, yeah, show up at that banquet and look forward to seeing you there. So thank you very much, Ian. Really appreciate your time. Appreciate all your hard work this session and appreciate the deep dive tonight. There's a lot of great information. Love all the insider stuff going down at the Capitol. So thank you again.
Of course, thanks for having me, Brandon. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Free State, Colorado, and Liberty on the Rocks. So anytime you need anything, give me a call and we'll get out there. We got a state to save and let's get some of our rights back.
Will do. Thank you, sir. Take care.